But to the point is supplements, there's a place for them.
Well, it's defined in the name, right? It's to supplement.
Supplement your diet. And so
it's, stop acting like you're smart. And so all of a
if
sudden,
you want to just direct this,
supplement
if you want to direct this.
I'm going to bring it into my show, then, right? Ben just said it's my show.
Welcome to the me show.
Welcome to the me. That's how I'm going to do it from now on. Welcome to the me show. And today's guest is a family friend. A friend of the family, I should say. Friend of the family.
Family friend, coworker, family,
in
coworker,
the family
friend.
altogether. Lindsay Hazard is a friend. Actually, Jim Hazard is a coworker of ours.
Who's an avid listener, by the way.
Who's an avid listener.
Yes.
He listens. He gives us feedback quite a bit.
And we're not going to talk bad about Jim today. We're going to keep it fresh. But, Lindsay, you've been a nutritionist for a number of years now.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you right there. It's not. It's registered dietitian. Is that right?
Dietitian.
Nutritionist is a dirty word.
Oh, now you're the one that set me up. Then.
Yeah.
You set me up, man. It's dietitian.
Exactly. A nutritionist is your grandma or your aunt. A registered dietitian actually studied and had to qualify.
You see how he put me out there? He's not going to stop me.
Hey, there's a nutritionist earlier. I said.
So a registered dietitian. I'm sorry.
You call people nutritionists, that's fighting words.
My apologies for that. A registered dietitian. And for youth.
Yes.
A what?
For the youth athletes.
Registered dietitian.
That's what I said.
You said dietitian.
Can we start this over again?
No, we don't do that here.
No. So I'm going to butcher this. Yeah. A registered dietitian.
Correct.
For youth athletes and for just youth in period, right?
Yeah, I focus on athletes, young and teen athletes.
Okay, so how, Lindsay, on this show, we talk, Tyler, talked earlier about how we talk about the journey and going back in the journey. I want to get a better understanding of, where you came from, your childhood, mother, father, your family experience. So where were you born?
I was born in Seattle, Washington.
Oh.
What part of Seattle?
Seattle.
No, what part? I mean, my son was just there.
I lived in Issaquah, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. But I'm not totally familiar with the geographics of the area because I was so young. But grew up a big Ken Griffey Jr. fan.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Going to Mariner games.
So you're a Seahawks fan?
I'm a Cowboys fan, but my family loves the Seahawks.
Okay. So you grew up a Cowboys fan?
Yes.
Okay, so did you know who Darren was?
Yes.
All right. Did you know who Tyler Klutz was?
No clue. It's like, my husband talks about this dude that drug him. All right. So what was life early on for you? I mean, siblings, family dynamic, you said you were in Seattle at a very young age. Mm-hmm. Where did your journey take you from there?
So I grew up, my family's very athletic, all super coordinated, big baseball family. Mm-hmm. I was not super athletic. When I was 9, my parents were like, you have to play a sport. You can pick what sport it is, but you have to try one sport. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. So I picked softball since my dad coached and loves baseball, so it just seemed like a natural fit. And I did really like it. When we moved to Dallas or McKinney, my parents encouraged me to sign up for athletics in middle school, which means you played volleyball, basketball, and then track in the spring. And so I did that, did not play volleyball because I was scared of the ball, not great at basketball, and then did track, too slow to be a sprinter, so I did distance and actually found out I could run for a really long period of time. Yeah. So nice. I did track and cross country in high school, and in college did marathons after that. So that's athletically where that came from. And my mom and I run a lot together, and Jim, my husband, and I run a lot together. We used to before we had children.
So when you were that age, how old were you when you started running?
12 or 13.
12 or 13.
So, I mean, obviously fast forward now, you're a registered dietitian.
Yes.
A dietitian.
A dietitian.
Dietitian. But, was that an element for you in high school as you got into the distance running? Were you aware of it then?
So I was not aware that it was a profession then, but I was aware that I was super hungry all the time.
Yeah.
Like just so hungry all the time. And my mom, who I think she could have been a great dietitian, she's like, you need to be bringing multiple lunches to school with you. So I would pack all of this food. I'm this like 5 foot tiny little thing eating more food than almost everyone, but I just needed it because I was expending so much energy. And so I really think my parents, like we just always ate family meals, ate regular meals, pretty healthy meals. So I was pretty well fueled as an athlete.
Okay.
Going
So
into all of that.
your parents like, okay, you need to get into sport. You need to do something. What was that like? Was it ever pressure? Like I need to perform, or it's just they just want me to be active?
They just want me to be active. No, they weren't. Of their 3 children, I was definitely the least athletic, so very low expectations. Both of my siblings will attest to.
Okay.
Well, you grew up in a competitive family, though. Where you?
Yes, everyone's very competitive in my family.
So athletically, okay, maybe that's not your strongest suit, with your siblings, but where else did you compete with them?
We're 3 years, I'm 3 years older than my sister, 6 years older than my brother. So we weren't competing head to head a lot directly, but just, being a good student, just
But like
listening
family
and-
board games.
Yeah, family board games.
That get intense.
Oh, always. I mean, what family, what family doesn't?
Yeah,
take?
if you're not taking risk,
Phase
super
10,
serious. What are you doing?
Yeah. Okay. So you go through high school, and distance running is something you're passionate about. Where did that take you beyond high school?
So I ran at a D2 school, Southern Arkansas University. I ran track and cross country there. It was really fun. It was just, taking it to the next level. So we were running twice a day. So we had like 6 a.m. practice and then 3:30 in the afternoon practice.
What kind of distances are you doing for each of these practices?
Probably between like 3 to 8 to 10
Okay.
miles.
Okay.
So we do our speed in the brutal afternoons in
Yeah.
I figured you'd be an ultra marathoner. Like we did an ultra, we interviewed an ultra marathon.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, he runs 100 miles.
100 miles. You know what?
He set the world record for 100 miles.
I have to take a break
disappointed.
driving 100
Yeah.
miles.
I'm
I've
a
gotta
bit
stop.
I'm a bit disappointed in you, Lindsay, that
I
you
know.
weren't running.
This is probably a really
Yeah.
dumb question. How far is a cross country?
For
Meet.
women, it was around a 5K or 6K.
Okay.
For men, it was an 8K or 10K.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So why the difference? Why do you think the difference? Because
That's sexist.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was just always like that. It's still like that now. The men still run further than the women. I'm not sure.
What is a
Right.
5K? How much in mileage? I'm a
3.1.
dumb American.
There you go. Okay.
3.1. Okay. Man, I was thinking like y'all were doing marathons out there.
No.
Oh, okay.
That's why, man, you see those cross country runners, they can go.
Oh
Yes.
man. Okay, so at your elite, what was like your pace, like your mile pace on some of those runs?
I was like not great, but like for racing
Yeah, in your race.
around 6 minutes.
Holy shit.
I was not great, but I ran faster than any of you
That's
guys.
I knew you were going to answer something like that. That's why I set you up like,
College,
oh.
though, there's,
Yeah.
girls running close to 5.
Jeez.
Okay.
God, that's incredible, though. I mean, but even at a young age, running cross country, so you had a mindset of this is what you wanted to do early on, right? But when did the dietitian part start to come in and understand the energy, the eating that you needed to have for?
So I've always been interested in food, but I would definitely say marathon training and marathon running. Like if your nutrition is not on point with a marathon, you're going to bonk. And I have successfully bonked in almost all of my marathons.
I was actually going to ask, can you really tell that big of a difference when your nutrition is on point and it's not?
Especially, your daily nutrition is really important, but when you're running a marathon, you have to eat during the marathon, like getting in fuel during the marathon and figuring out what your body can handle is key there. And so it took me a really long time to figure out what my body could handle and what my stomach could handle and making sure you're getting it in early. Because my fastest marathon, I probably slowed down like 5 minutes in the second half just because of lack of fueling because I just couldn't take anything
Really?
in because I was so nauseous.
What are you eating during a race?
It's like have you ever seen those goos?
Oh,
Those
gel packets,
Those
yeah.
Honey Stinger chews. They're like little round gummies or what works.
So you're not
best for
taking
me.
a sandwich with you in mile 14.
On the bike, you can do that.
Just a
but
bucket
no.
of burger, a bucket of chicken.
Yes.
What a prize.
I got my Subway sandwich and I'm good to go.
Just need calories.
You just need carbs.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you graduate from Southern Arkansas. Where do you go next?
I graduated with a business degree in marketing, and I graduated in 2007, which is not the best
Hey,
time
2007.
trying to start a career.
Were you still in high school, Ben?
I was like second year in college, 2007.
Okay.
You want to know where I was? No.
Retired.
The Aaron was twerking on McKinney Avenue in 2007.
Watch your mouth over there.
I don't even remember what I was talking about. But yeah, so I graduated in 2007.
Sorry, we get distracted really easily on this show.
We're three ogres that just go down a rabbit hole.
Never found a job I was super passionate about. I liked them, but it just wasn't something I knew I wanted to do after we had kids. And at this point, I had met my now husband. We were talking about starting a family, and I knew I wanted
Hold on. We breezed over this whole deal.
How did you meet I need to know. How did you meet your now husband?
Well, first of all, if you don't, we said it earlier, we work with her husband.
Right.
He's one of our coworkers.
He's one of our favorite people on the planet. And
Jim, we know you're listening.
Jim,
we love you, brother.
Hey, honestly, unbelievable. Like one of the most intelligent people that I've ever been around, for sure.
Hilarious.
But we'll
call you out.
His had no filter whatsoever.
Zero.
But like his sense of humor is like, I mean, not everybody gets it, but like I get everything. Like I think he is hilarious.
And he's got a punchable face. Just kidding, Jim. Just kidding.
But we actually met running a marathon.
Okay.
So we met in 2007 as well, running the Chicago Marathon. We were both living here. We were just in the same training group, but I was in the faster.
Training group. Okay. So you didn't meet on the course.
Wait a minute. You're in the what? The faster?
Training group with him.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So we hadn't met yet because I was just so far ahead of him, like out of training. And so
just looking at you from a distance.
He was looking.
You couldn't see
You
him.
never saw him. He saw you plenty.
He was playing catch up all the time.
Okay. And so we met at dinner the night before, and then that year it was so hot. It was like 90 degrees. So lots of bonking occurred, but we ended up running part of the marathon together, which is kind of crazy because there's like tens of thousands of people out there. And then we're friends for a couple of years before.
So I need to ask this. Mm-hmm. So what's the first thing he said to you?
That's a great question.
What was his
inappropriate comment did Jim say?
Probably. He didn't, I can't remember it, but he was sending out a lot of funny emails beforehand about like, do we really need to run this whole marathon? This sounds like a great trip, but this marathon?
Yeah.
Just turn. So he didn't say, I really love watching your stride.
No, because we were just friends. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you guys are friends for a couple years, and then what was it for you that, because I know he pursued you. I mean, here's the deal. I know that he did. So what was it that got you over the hump and saying, okay, this guy's amazing?
I mean, he's pretty amazing, but our running group really pushed us together, and we have a big group of running friends.
Good friends.
And they were kind of pushing us together, and it was just good timing for both of us. And so we started dating. Lots of running together.
Right. How does that work?
You suffered together.
I mean,
you bonded.
You said he was behind at one point. Now, at some point, he caught up, right?
So he invited me to start running with his group in Dallas, which is how we have all these mutual friends. And so, I mean, I still beat him almost every time. But
even now?
I mean, since having children, he would probably beat me. But I did beat him in a marathon pregnant. So
you were pregnant. You beat him in a marathon. Well, first of all, you ran. First of all, you ran a marathon pregnant.
I wasn't that far along. I was like 6 weeks.
Still, there's things going on that are not conducive to running long distance.
That's a champ.
That's
it's my finest victory. So.
That's amazing. Okay, so you guys get married when?
2012.
12. Okay.
Hey, me too. What date?
8/11.
Okay. I was 7/7.
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay, so work-wise, where are you at professionally?
When we were married, I was working at a race, a company we helped put on races.
Okay.
So I was working with getting a lot of sponsorships for these races and putting them on.
Okay.
So it was really fun, but the hours were just not great.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Lots of 2 or 3 o'clock in the mornings, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like cram right before.
Setting up and everything. So
But then you decided, hey, I want to start my own business.
I said I want to be a dietitian.
I want to be a dietitian, not a nutritionist.
Dietitian.
Yeah. Dietitian. So, but why? What was the reasoning behind making that decision?
The passion. Like I had such an interest in nutrition, so I was constantly like reading about it, researching it, and I realized a dietitian is like the most credentialed nutrition professional that you can be. And just with my type A personality, I was like, oh, I want to be certified. I want to have like this official title, this official license. And so that's the direction.
Okay, so give me, since I butchered it earlier, what is the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian?
So a dietitian, we have to have a degree. I'm pretty sure now you have to have your master's in nutrition, and then you have to do 1,200 hours of internship within that too. So I did a coordinated program, so I got my master's and my 1,200 internship hours done at the same time, and then you have to pass a licensing exam.
And a nutritionist is you.
That would be
nutritionists don't. There's
have
no
an Instagram
certification needed. And there's some great nutritionists out there who aren't dietitians, but dietitians, we do have to do a lot of things to get our credentials.
Yeah. So do you think because you were an athlete and are an athlete, that actually going through and understanding personally how important nutrition was, you think that's what drew you and wanted to start your own?
Yes, and another like running thing. My husband was running with a friend who had young athlete children, and she was talking about how she wished she could figure out how she was supposed to feed them. And Jim was like, you should do this when you're done with school. And I was like, oh, that actually would be really fun. I love working with kids and families during my internship, and so tying in that sports component just seems like a good fit.
You know, and that's so interesting because when Jim and I first talked about you being a dietitian, you know, one of the first things that, you know, and I know Tyler and Ben go through the same thing, is we get asked as former athletes all the time on what to eat, what to put in your body pre-game, after game, during recovery. And again, I'm a nutritionist, evidently. Yeah. So I'll just throw out
Dr. Darren.
You know, and we don't know any better. I mean, while you're on your phone, Tyler.
Yeah. I'm looking up what dietitian means.
You're right. We're just repeating what we've heard in the past. So, you know, I want to go down this line of, let's say I am a 15-year-old girl who's playing volleyball, and I want a pregame meal. And we have, as we well know now, especially in club volleyball, they may play all day on an entire weekend, Saturday and Sunday. What am I putting in my body before I go into these games?
So before you go into them, that night before, so I do there's these things developed that are called performance plates. They were developed by the Olympic Committee. And so there's 3 different plates. So you would eat a hard day plate the night before a game. And so that means half your plate is carbohydrates, a quarter of your plate is protein, and a quarter of your plate is color, which is fruit or vegetables. And so you really want to get in all of those carbohydrates the night before to top off your energy stores. Your body uses carbs for energy, so no low carb diets for athletes. And it stores that energy in your muscles and your liver for use later. And so making sure those energy stores are as topped off as possible. Some of my athletes, I have them even eat a snack before bedtime to just really top everything off. So when you wake up the next morning and you eat breakfast, you're like fueled and ready to go.
Let's dumb this down really far down. What is a carbohydrate? Like, what is an example of a carbohydrate that you would?
So carbohydrates are all of your breads, your pasta, rice, oatmeal, all your grains, pretty much all your grains, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, all of that kind of white stuff. The stuff that people consider bad
it's white.
Is carbohydrates.
Wait, hold on.
Easy.
Everything that's bad
I did not say that. I'm just repeating what she said.
So let's talk about white versus brown.
Bring that in. Color.
As it relates to rice.
As it relates to rice and breads and things. I think a common misconception or a common thought is if the whiter the bread, the faster you're dead, was the old saying. So as an athlete, does it matter if I choose brown rice over white rice or wheat bread over white bread? What's the difference there?
So the difference is the darker ones, like the whole grain ones, they're going to have like a little bit more fiber, a little extra vitamins and minerals in them. So overall, like we want at least 50% of your carbohydrates to be coming from those whole grain sources. The night before an activity, the versions that are not whole grain, like the white versions, often are better because they don't have that as much fiber, so they're easier for your body to digest. And especially, lots of us get those stomach issues on game day.
Right.
So just not having all that excess fiber the night before can help relieve that.
So in college, I don't know what you guys did the night before the game, but even if it was a home game, we'd stay at a hotel. But the team dinner was at Golden Corral.
Yeah.
And they would take us to the buffet. And I'm pounding fried chicken, mashed potatoes, like
because it's free.
because it's free $99, and if it's free, it's me.
You brought your own bag too.
That's the one meal a week.
Ben would.
That's the one meal a week I'm guaranteed to
Eating
get.
it on Monday, eating it on Tuesday. Yeah.
So if I'm in that situation as an athlete the night before and I have to go to Golden Corral because that's where the team is, what are some, you mentioned it before, but what are some things that we could steer ourselves toward? Maybe not the fried chicken and ice cream.
Definitely not the fried chicken or the mashed potatoes, because those are just higher in fat. So we're really wanting to not eat a ton of fat before, because fat takes a while to digest and just kind of sits in your stomach, and especially again for those stomach issues the next day, you want to avoid that. So there's always going to be some sort of like chicken or pork or some sort of like leaner protein option. I'm sure there's always going to be rice or some sort of pasta option there as well, or some sort of bread, and then picking a fruit or vegetable to go along with it.
Do you have to be limited on your fruit? I mean, because I remember being in training camp when I first got to Dallas, and guys would eat as much fruit as they could, and then they start cramping up. You know, specifically in the summertime. I mean, there's parts of this that you have to be limited on, right? So is this like, do you have to go get your blood tested as an individual to then bring the results back so someone like you could see those results?
So for the overall average, like young or teen athlete, I'm not going to put limits on their fruit or their vegetable intake, because most of them are not eating enough to begin with. And so when you'd start really limiting it would just be maybe when you get to that higher NFL level, and just maybe if you're needing to watch your blood sugar more, or if you're trying to lean down, you're cutting back a little bit on more fruits and adding in more vegetables. But for a young or teen athlete, no, I'm not going to.
So what is the biggest problem you see with young athletes right now?
So a lot of them are really underfueling. So I would say most of the athletes I've worked with are not eating enough to match their activity, because these athletes, man, you guys are training a lot. They're training 2, sometimes 3 times a day. And so trying to fit in all of the fuel they need is just like another component to their day. And most of them just aren't aware that they need that much food. And so figuring out how to schedule that in, how to get it in. A lot of athletes aren't eating early in the day, so they're skipping out on breakfast, maybe eating like a banana and a sandwich for lunch. And then they get to the end of the day, they eat this giant dinner, and 30 minutes later, they're hungry, because they should be, because they haven't fueled their bodies all day, and then they're rummaging through the pantry and making not the best.
Sound like
decisions.
me. That's me now.
I'm just sitting here thinking about, I had no knowledge, no clue growing up on nutrition. I was telling these guys I would pound a full DiGiorno before practice, full DiGiorno pizza. I just had no idea.
But how did you feel? I mean, your body.
Awful.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
You would think that your body was going to tell you.
Just kept
But
going.
if you don't know,
Yeah. I was just eating like normal and then just going to practice. Because, at that age, it doesn't really affect you that much.
Well, but I think it does.
It does. Maybe I just didn't realize it.
So let's talk about that, like from a performance standpoint, right? Because we're talking about fuel, and you need fuel, you need this, but like, let's talk about how that actually translates to performance for younger athletes.
Yes. So younger athletes that are following a good nutrition plan, they're going to have more energy, which is really important when you're training multiple hours a day. They're going to recover from these training sessions better, which means you'll be able to train harder at the next one.
Become stronger.
Yeah, you'll get stronger. You're going to be less sick. You're going to be less likely to get injured. You're going to be able to build muscle strength, muscle endurance, and just be an overall physically and mentally stronger athlete.
I think
all
that's
from something you're doing every day anyways, so why don't clean it up?
That's such a good point, that if you don't think this stuff matters that much, your performance is directly affected when your diet's poor versus when it's a good diet. So if you care about performance, this is something you really need to take serious.
Yes.
Talk about protein. Like, I think as in the fitness industry, protein is really big on rebuilding muscle. Yes. But talk about to the younger athlete, because I when I was in high school, I was anti-supplements. Like, I'm going to get everything that I need from food. Now, maybe that was the right way to do it. I just probably wasn't eating enough food. But talk about like protein intake for, so let's just say male athletes from 13 to 18 years old.
So shockingly, most athletes are getting in enough protein. So
They are
through food. And so if an athlete typically needs like 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Okay. And so it's just not a ton of protein.
Wait, say that again. 0.6 to 0.8 per pound of body weight.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're 150 pounds, like just under 100 grams of protein.
6 grams of protein.
It's like 6,000 grams.
So it's not a ton. The mistake athletes really make with protein is not spreading it throughout the day. So your body doesn't store protein. Like people are like, oh, my muscles. But no, your muscles aren't protein stores. Your muscles are your muscles. And we don't want our bodies breaking those down and using that for energy. And so what your body really wants to take care of your muscles is protein all throughout the day. So getting in protein at breakfast, getting in protein at most of your snacks, getting in protein at lunch and dinner, and having it all throughout the day, so your body constantly has a steady stream of protein to build, repair those muscles.
Is there anything? What type of protein would you say? Meats?
So you can be vegetarian and meet your protein needs. So I don't want anyone to listen to this and think they have to have meat. But meat it's a great source of protein. It's super easy. You can make sandwiches using eggs and stuff in the morning. And then most people I think hit their protein at night because mom is normally making a
some sort of
meal
meat,
with like protein, a carb, and a vegetable with it.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying though about the protein is that I don't have to rush after practice or after a workout in the gym to get my protein shake. It's more the most effective way is just a consistent intake throughout the day.
Yes, and I do like protein after workouts for recovery, but another piece to that recovery is carbohydrates. Like you don't just need protein after a workout, you also need carbohydrates because you've used your carbohydrate stores during your training session. So we need to replenish that too. So we need to replenish our carbs. We need to give our body some protein so that we can start repairing and building those muscles. And then we also need to hydrate. So drink fluids because we've lost a lot of fluid through.
So we live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and areas here have been voted as best place to raise an athlete. So there's a ton of youth athletes here.
Yes, so many.
As a parent, right, we come in and we move into these communities so that like our children can be a part of these, athletic activities. So as a parent now, you're talking to them. You're not talking to the student athlete or the child. You're talking to them. How can they? Because the challenge is you're saying they're not eating enough. They're not eating enough. Like food's expensive, right? I've got 4. I grew up. I'm one of 5, and I know my family was like, okay, we're making one Costco trip a month. Y'all got to make it last.
Yep.
And it was typically gone 3 days later because 4 boys went through and ransacked the place.
Well, and what's cheaper, right? The bagged frozen burritos, the corn dogs. The pizza, all
so
that.
So as a parent, how can we help either train, educate, or set our kids up for success?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on the expensive side, there's ways to eat healthy and it not cost a lot. Using frozen fruits and vegetables, canned fruits and vegetables is totally okay. Using grains like rice and pasta, you can buy those in big bags it doesn't go bad for a while. And then buying meat, just picking what's on sale, using buying frozen meats, that works well too.
Canned tuna that I lived off of.
Like canned tuna, there's so many options. Eggs, milk, those are other great things for athletes. Like milk and yogurt are one of my favorite foods to tell athletes to eat because they have carbohydrates, they have protein in them. And they're pretty easy to get, and you're getting in like the good calcium.
That's interesting because I feel like there's such a negative connotation to dairy now. Like everyone's so anti-dairy.
Yeah, that was my next question. I mean, how do you feel about dairy?
I love dairy. I mean, there are some kids that can't have it.
Darren's guts don't love dairy.
Yeah,
Darren's if you can't handle dairy, then
it's
that's
the bubblies.
something different. There's
guts.
good plant-based.
She's just playing through like a champ right now. She's not even listening to you two. She has so much practice with Jim.
You know what?
I do have a lot of practice.
You're talking about what putting in your body, but I'm not just talking about the athletes. It's how many kids. I work with a lot of kids in South Dallas that don't get a meal. I mean, they have to wait till they get to school to get a meal, and then when you get to school, it may not be healthy at that. What can you give me maybe a couple of things, because as we well know, in certain parts of Dallas, it's a food desert. You can't just go to the Kroger or the Tom Thumb to get food. What are some of the things you mentioned? Sardines. What are some or tuna?
What?
Sardines. You mentioned tuna. Sardines too.
Darren, have you ever eaten canned tuna?
Oh, dude.
Okay.
Canned tuna, sardines. We
Really?
grew up. Yeah. Anyway.
Hey, little mustard, mustard in the can tuna. Call it a day.
Yeah.
A mayonnaise
But what are some of the
sandwich?
things that you could give like a kid in the inner city who's waking up and just needs the fuel to learn?
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are one of my favorite. You can get peanut butter and jelly pretty much anywhere. I've gone to gas stations and seen loaves of bread, peanut butter, jelly, and it's a great snack. It's a great part of your breakfast, having peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a glass of milk. Add a banana to that and you're golden. You have some protein in that peanut butter, protein in the milk, some carbs in the bread and the jam, and then you have some color with getting in a banana or some frozen fruit or a fruit cup, whatever you have around.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we talked about earlier fueling for competition, and sorry, we cut you off. we got through the night before. Let's talk about the day of competition. This reminds me of a story in college. We played I think we were playing in San Antonio, and we went to Texas Roadhouse the day of the game, and I had 12 of those little rolls
With the cinnamon butter?
Yes, it was the worst game I've ever played in my life. Honestly, I felt horrible.
Dude,
because
you're excessive. You are like over the top excessive.
Although you are making me hungry right now.
Yeah. So what should I have eaten on the day of the game?
So I think that really depends with a lot of when your game is. So as a former cross country runner, our competitions were at like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So I was really concerned with breakfast, where if you're playing football, you're probably playing in the afternoon or evening. Yeah. And so for both situations, you want to get in a good breakfast. If you only have a couple hours, you really just want to focus on getting in a good source of carbs with a little bit of protein. If you're not playing until the evening, let's get in a full breakfast. Let's use that hard day plate again. A good recommendation I make to a lot of athletes is using things like frozen waffles, because you can find those most places for your carbohydrates. Eggs, hard-boiled eggs especially, you can find those pretty much especially like lots of hotels that you might be staying in will have that. Yogurt is another good source of protein in the morning, and then just, topping it off with a little bit of fruit. And then same thing for lunch. You just really want to keep everything like pretty low fat, no fried foods, and just stuff your stomach will digest well. And so I always encourage my athletes to practice before practices, like eat what you want to eat before game day, before practice, and see how that sits in your stomach. So that way, when you get to game day, you have no questions about what you're eating.
So what's the dialogue like with the athletes that you're working with? Is this like an everyday, communication, or is this once a week? How are you communicating with the athletes?
So I normally meet with them. I'll meet with them initially. We'll have a pretty long session. And then we normally follow up 2 weeks later. I find that gives people enough time to start implementing the changes that we've talked about. And then lots of them will text me pictures of their plates to show me what they're doing, email me in between sessions, because a lot of these families are so busy, they can't meet with me every other week. They can meet with me once a month, though, so we just stay in contact through I want them to send me certain things in between this time.
So is this mostly, do you want to be talking to the athlete or the parent?
Both.
You want to be talking to the parent. Okay.
We can't make this athlete eat, so this athlete has to be on board. So I definitely have the most success with athletes that are showing up to these sessions, and they're like talking to me, telling me what they're doing, telling me what their goals are, and then they're receptive to the information that I'm giving them. Because we can tell you all the information in the world to make you a better athlete, but if you're not going to do it,
right.
My hands are tied. I can't.
So one of the things that I always see, especially, my son just graduated from high school, but one of the things that he and his buddies had always gone through, even from their freshman year on, is always putting on weight.
Oh, this is a good conversation.
Like that was, and I couldn't help him. Peanut butter and jelly is what I used to always tell him. But I mean, what advice do you give a young kid, say a young boy who's a football player, and he's getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're practicing in the morning, and they're sweating in the Texas heat. What advice are you giving them?
So they just have to eat all the flipping time. So like they need to wake up in the morning and eat something small before that session in the morning. We need to afterwards be eating a big recovery breakfast. And really, especially football, they're normally training multiple times a day. You're probably eating like every 2 hours when you're not practicing, because you're practicing so many hours a day. Like, you have to still fit in your fuel somehow. And so some weight gain tips are, adding some extra fats to your meal. So are you adding some avocado, some sour cream, like a little bit of oil to your vegetables, just finding in ways to get in a couple extra calories, having juice as your beverage at some meals to get in some extra calories that way, just adding a little extra servings of carbs, adding in extra snacks, just trying to figure out how to get in.
Let's just look at it from a calorie standpoint, like just so people understand the perspective, right? If you're, let's just say 2 days in football, right? I mean, how many calories can these kids be burning training, just the training aspect? And then what is the calorie burn just on a typical day for, a 16-year-old boy?
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm working with some kids that need like 4,000 to 5,000 calories.
That's right.
Because
that's what Tyron Smith is supposed to consume.
Because not only are they
he's
training,
more than that.
Now I'm saying he takes in 4,000 to 6,000 calories a day.
What does The Rock do? Someone told me.
Oh, he's like
A lot.
7,000.
Crazy.
But he's not growing like these teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these teenagers have that extra, like, they're growing, so
Yeah.
they need extra nutrients, especially teenage boys, for growing too. So they're already like a calorie burning machine just from living, and then you factor in their training on top of that, and they just need so much food.
But how do you organize? I mean, you're talking about a 16-year-old kid, right? How do you organize a 16-year-old kid to say, okay, you need to eat this, and then during the school day? So now he's gone to practice, he's going to school. I mean, are you giving them advice on what to pack in those bags?
So I normally give them, so we talk a lot about those performance plates I talked about before. So we talk a lot about, okay, what protein are you going to have with each meal? What carbohydrate source are you going to have with each meal? And what color are you going to have with each meal? And then we can talk about fats to add, but I don't normally give someone like, okay, eat this at this time. That's just not sustainable. No one wants to eat the same thing every day. And so just telling them like how big their meals need to be, how frequently they need to be eating. And when I do work with athletes, they fill out a food log for me. They do document 3 days. So that gives me a good idea of like what they're doing now. And so I'll normally look at what they're doing and see what we can add to that to make it a little easier to implement, instead of saying, okay, everything you're doing is wrong. Let's start from ground zero and you need to eat in a whole new way, because that's just too hard.
Right. Yeah. So another layer of complexity, I think, to especially our culture now, is we're so focused on clean eating, right? Yes. And parents that are like, we're only eating organic, we're only shopping at Whole Foods, we're only like... So now this is trickling down to kids. How important is it to have completely clean, whole, natural foods? Or is it like, I just need calories?
So you need the calories.
Yes.
Ideally, I like my athletes to be eating like 80% clean. I don't love that term clean, but
Yeah.
80%.
So you take your soap and water out and you clean your...
Yeah, so 80% like those good lean proteins, those good fruits and vegetables, those good carbohydrates that you need, those, adding in dairy, healthy fats. And then 20% of the time, like these kids are burning so many calories, so 20% of the time, that's like once or twice a day for most of them, have those cookies that you want or have that bag of chips. I'm big on not restricting, because if you restrict, you're just going to constantly be thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go absolutely crazy when you let yourself have it. Where if you have a cookie or two every day, it's just not that big a deal.
Right. At that age. Yeah, it goes right to my hips at this age. But.
Okay, but what about kids that are, let's say they're just the opposite. Kids that need to burn, they need to get that weight off of them.
Yes.
Give us that advice. Give us that kid like Ben. Ben came up.
I was waiting for it.
There was 2 tons of fun coming up.
Dude, so it's funny because I live both sides of the coin. In high school, I needed to, or middle school, I needed to lose weight. And then as I got older, I needed to gain weight. So I'll be interested to hear what you say.
And so with losing weight, that's kind of a tricky thing, because with puberty for both boys and girls, there is a period of time where you are just going to have a little bit of extra weight on you. And you kind of just have to let nature take its course.
That's
and
right,
you're gonna
Darren.
hit
A little, Ben. A little extra weight.
in those athletic sports, especially when it comes to females, gymnastics, ice skating, running, all of those sports, very body focused. Like, it's just important to know that that is normal, and just to keep training through it and concentrating on athletic performance and not how you look is really important.
Yeah.
But for those athletes that do, like, they want to lean up a little bit for their sport, there's the easy day plate is what I have them go with. And that is half your plate is made up of those fruits and vegetables. A quarter of your plate is that same protein, and then a quarter of your plate is carbs, because you still do need those carbs.
Right.
And so you're just naturally eating a little less calories because you're eating more fruits and vegetables that just tend to be lower in calories.
Let's step away just from the high school, athlete. Let's talk about just different diets in your opinion, and the effectiveness, and maybe the right implementation and maybe the wrong. But like, let's look at like keto, paleo, versus vegan. Like, where do these play into it, or are these just because I tried the keto deal for a little while, and I can't get my mind around energy from fat. I mean, but how legitimate and how effective can these be?
So a lot of it is just what works for your lifestyle. And I believe you guys had another guest that basically said the same thing. But it's like, what can you sustain? For some people, eating keto just is really easy for them. It just helps them stay in that like weight loss pattern that they're wanting to stay in. I think for active people, I don't think keto is the right way to go, because your muscles and your brain, like they want carbs for energy. And so when they're not getting that, especially for running purposes, I've had any friends I've had that have tried to go low carb, they go out for a run like 2 days later and
gone.
Like you just feel terrible. And so I'm not a huge fan of keto, but I do know what works for some people. So it's all about what's sustainable for you. Vegan, the same thing. I think that would be really hard to live a vegan lifestyle to still get in all the vitamins and minerals that you need. But some people are willing to put in the extra work because they believe strongly in the vegan lifestyle. So I'm not going to nix anything.
Plus, carbs are just so delicious.
So delicious.
Why would you want to cut out carbohydrates?
But I just want to, like, I'll be selfish here, like I always am, but I want to speak specifically.
The Darren Woodson
It is
show.
the me show. So I have a problem, when I get up in the morning, most of the time I'm trying to everything's in a hurry. So I'm trying to get out of the house, trying to get to meetings or whatnot. My issue is eating throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I'm big on not eating in the morning, maybe having a small lunch, but I'm falling off.
You're like my teen athletes here.
Yeah.
Tie it to what you do, because that is the focus of this.
Yeah.
Darren's trying to be selfish, but
He's not that much different.
But it's not that much different.
He's not that much different. Because you could apply that to a lot of teen athletes.
Yes, so a lot of athletes, they tell me they're not hungry in the morning.
Right.
Or they aren't I supposed to sleep to get that recovery? And I'm like, yes, you do need to sleep to get that recovery in. But you don't have to make breakfast in the morning. You can make it the night before and grab and go.
Yeah.
But I have athletes that did not eat breakfast, and I'm like, you're going to start eating breakfast. The only way for athletes to really meet their energy expenditure needs is to eat breakfast. And so they'll gradually start feeling that hunger come again for breakfast, because breakfast just wakes up those hunger hormones.
Yeah.
And so I had one client recently, she's like, I feel hungry in the mornings now. It's so weird. And it's just because she started eating breakfast, and it took her a week or two of eating breakfast. And
I can't relate to those people that are not hungry in the morning.
I used to not be hungry in the
starving,
morning. Yeah, I
so.
used to not. But then that same thing, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But, and then for adults, like research has shown, like those that eat more earlier in the day, it's just like easier for them to maintain that calorie deficit.
Okay.
I think it's just
because the intermittent fasting deal is a big deal right now. It's like, okay, I eat, my last meal at 7:00, and then I don't eat again until noon the next day.
Yeah.
I know that's.
I've
like
always felt the
big
same
deal.
way. I always felt like the breakfast is overrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could only pick one meal a day.
100%. I'm the same way. Are you kidding me? Like good pancakes, French toast, eggs, bacon.
That's why I hit the wall. That's exactly why I'm hitting this wall. Yeah. Is because I'm not getting that.
Don't have the
a lot
calories.
of athletes are doing accidental intermittent fasting, like what you're talking about. They're not meaning. Well, I guess they are meaning to. They just don't eat enough.
I would say the most productive time in my performance was early in college, and I had started working with a nutritionist and
Registered dietitian.
No, this was a nutritionist.
Oh,
God. He was also my trainer, but he worked with like a lot
brother.
of high school athletes. But one of the things that he had me doing is he had me getting up, and I was not a morning person, but he had me get up at 6:30 and eat. And he's like, if you have time to go back to bed, but you need to be up at 6:30 every morning, and you need to get calories in. And I thought, like, because I was very body conscious at that point. So I didn't want to like put on bad weight, but like that was the leanest and strongest I'd ever been, was when I was making sure I was very consistent with my meals.
And getting that food in the morning really prevents overeating later in the day, because you're not going to be like, or like growling and going through your fridge like in pantry, just stuffing everything in your mouth, because you're going to just be more conscious of this decisions that you're making of what you're going to eat. Yeah. And you're fueling your body, so you're not starving.
Yeah. Talk about the difference between like 3 big meals or 5 or 6 spaced out meals. Does it make a difference, or is it, at the end of the day, just caloric intake?
So for teen athletes, 3 meals a day it's not going to cut it. Like there's no way they're going to hit their nutrition needs in 3 meals. I always I prefer for them not to go more than 3 to 4 hours without eating, just because their energy needs are so high. So I would say the majority of my clients are eating at least 3, they're eating 3 regular meals a day, and I would say between 1 to 3 snacks a day, just really depending on their training schedule and their energy needs.
Okay.
Talk us through post-competition nutrition. What do we need to bring in after a game?
So after a game, it'll be same with training sessions. You need to get that recovery snack in within 10 to 45 minutes post game. And I know that's really hard, because it's just not natural to feel hungry afterwards. So I'm sure you guys have probably heard this before, but chocolate milk is great here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. We used to have a big refrigerator, and they would just go in there and pick out chocolate milk.
Yes. Yeah. And so for some of my larger athletes, they might need 2 chocolate milks to get in just a little bit more protein and carbs, or just have a chocolate milk with something else. But for my younger athletes, because I work with some that are like 9 or 10 years old, those 10 grams of protein, 30 grams of carbs, boom, like they're good. And so we have that recovery snack right after our competition or training session, and then 2 to 3 hours later, we need to be having a meal, and that meal needs to have protein, needs to have carbohydrates, and just really working on replenishing what we've lost. And so we've lost all of our energy, so we need to replenish that energy through carbohydrates. We need that protein so that our muscles can build up stronger, and then we need to be making sure to get in that fluid. And hydration is a big piece that a lot of athletes aren't doing. That's super easy, drinking water. So we need to get in that water, especially, living here.
Kids don't drink water. They don't drink water anymore. All I see is Gatorade and all these other drinks. Talk us through that as far as, trying to replenish with Gatorade, because that's something that I'm always fighting with my kids about.
So Gatorade is formulated for athletes. So it is great during practice, especially now when kids are practicing outside and it's so hot outside, and their practices are long. So that Gatorade has those carbohydrates in there to replenish that energy that you're losing. It has some electrolytes in there to replenish electrolytes that you're losing through sweat, and then it has that liquid. And the electrolytes and the carbs just help that fluid stick to you a little bit better, helps you rehydrate a little bit better. But outside of sport, we don't need it. It's just essentially like sugar water.
Another thing that, Darren, you were saying earlier, people ask us, and they ask us all the time, what should my kids be? One of the biggest questions I get, and I used to get often, was supplements. So what's your opinion on supplements for student athletes? I'm assuming it's, hey, you got to take care of your nutrition, your real nutrition first, but can supplements play a role in overall nutrition?
And I actually just did a talk on this to a basketball camp this morning. And so supplements, you think of it as a pyramid, and at the bottom, the base of your pyramid, we have your everyday diet. It's not fun, it's not cool, but it's your everyday diet is the base of your nutrition for performance. And so our everyday diet needs to be in check. We need to be eating enough food to meet our calorie needs. We need to be eating enough protein so that our muscles are able to build, repair, all of that fun stuff. Carbohydrates for energy, and all the vitamins and minerals and fat that our body needs just to run on a daily basis. So that's the base of your pyramid. Second, we have our pre-fuel, our post-game fuel. That comes into play because that will have an effect once you're taking care of the bottom line, your base nutrition needs. And then we can talk about supplements. The thing with supplements is they're not tested on kids. It just wouldn't be ethical to test supplements on children. So we just don't know the long-term effects of supplements. Protein powder, if it is just protein powder, just making sure it's a third-party certified product, meaning that someone has gone in and made sure what is in the bottle is actually what the label says, is should be fine. So protein powder is great for convenience. Don't want all my athletes getting all their protein from protein powder because there's so many vitamins and minerals in your protein food. So if you look at a steak, there's so much nutrition in that steak than just protein. And so just using them for convenience when needed. Obviously, if your diet is deficient in some sort of vitamin and mineral, we want to supplement with that as well. But if a supplement is really making those big changes, like really helping that muscle gain, really helping that speed, it's probably not legal. So,
Good point.
especially once you hit college, there's so many, even caffeine is banned at a certain
Yeah.
level in college.
Yeah, there's so many restrictions on
What was called
supplements.
baseball greenies? Was the
those popping those greenies.
Yeah,
Where it goes.
is that what the-
it's like for caffeine, isn't it? Like
I think it was like almost ADHD, but it's like caffeine. But So but to the point is supplements. There's a place for them.
Well, it's defined in the name, right? It's to supplement.
Supplement your diet.
Your diet.
And so
Don't
it's,
stop acting like you're smart. And
Hey.
so all of a
If
sudden,
y'all wanna just direct this-
supplement.
If you want to
your
direct
diet.
this towards me, I'll answer all your questions. Lindsay, you can
We're
take
not
a break.
talking about you. We're talking to the expert here, the
Yeah.
dietitian.
that's my new title, the dietitian. So
You know what? One thing I've noticed, Lindsay, is that you light up when you're talking about
Yeah,
kids'
seriously.
diet.
This is
it's really
you can,
fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun, like having this job that I'm passionate about, and just like I know I have little kids, so they don't. My daughter, she's like, my mommy's a dietitian, and she just knows I talk to people about food. But I'm excited for them to grow up and seeing like a mom that loves what she does.
Yeah, your kids are gonna have such an advantage because
Yeah.
this is not.
But you know what?
This is nothing I thought about.
But I
ever.
think that's, part of me is like, there's a lot of information that you're giving us right now that's like that information that's needed. And it's needed in so many ways. It's not just like our kids that are, my kids are living in a big house, and I'm more
eating
concerned.
fillets for breakfast.
I'm serious. I'm more
Caviar.
concerned about
Rich.
those kids,
Rich.
not just the athlete, but just and I mentioned it earlier. Those kids that just don't have. And how do you? I mean, just thinking about. I want us to think about this. They don't have food. How do you learn?
I don't know, because it's for a student athlete, like getting that nutrition in for the student is so important. And so we have to figure out
Okay, so this is what we're gonna do.
bed.
We're gonna do something. We're gonna the Darren Woodson, the me show. We're gonna do something along with you, Lindsay, where we're gonna get out, and it's not gonna be just to the student athlete. We're gonna get back and serve. And the information that you have needs to be spread not only to families in the inner city, but to the schools themselves. We got to figure out a plan, Ben. We'll put that on you to do
Put
so.
everything, you put everything else on me. You might as well just add another.
I'm not going to bottle this information up. I mean, we got to get you out there and to help out.
Yeah.
No, this is so good. If I was a 15-year-old, 14-year-old kid, you've got to listen to this because this stuff is gold, and it can really. I mean, it could be the difference in you getting a scholarship or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because your performance is everything.
Yeah.
And if you're not eating enough, if you're not fueling with the right foods, I mean, that can really kill your ability to perform when it matters most.
Yes.
So your husband told me something that will stick with me forever.
What did he tell you?
Oh no. But he told me something that will stick with me honestly forever. And I don't know why I never thought of it that way or explaining it. But food has almost become like
religion.
no, but like almost evil in our culture, right? You look at the Hollywood media culture, right? Like you've got to be lean and like food is the enemy. And so I've got an 8-year-old daughter, almost 9, who is already like body conscious, right? And so Jim told me something. Food is meant, and I want you to finish it because I want you to get credit for it because this is your saying.
What he's saying.
But food is, don't think about food as how it makes you look, but how it makes you feel. Like that is food. Food is fuel. It's not about like, don't eat something. Don't not eat something because it's going to put, it's going to go to my hips or it's going to go to my butt, because really at such a young age, especially with social media, especially little girls, like very body conscious. So talk through that mindset just to all parents and how to view food and with their kids.
Yeah, so I think it's just important to have a good relationship with food. And I know, especially for women, it's something we struggle with because of body image issues. But just being really neutral about everything. I know when we feed our kids, if they're having dessert, we typically like put it on their plate, and if they want to eat it first, like more power to them. I'm not going to ever force them to eat their food. I want them to have a healthy relationship with food. Kids, when they're young, they're so good at being intuitive with their eating. Like they know what their body needs. And if you watch my son, he's 19 months old, you watch him eat. Some days he just eats and eats and eats and eats. And then there's some days he's like,
Yeah.
I don't care. And so they're just so good at regulating their appetites. And so a big thing I'm trying to do with my kids, especially my daughter, she's 5 now, is making sure we keep that. And so never like pushing her to eat more. We'll be like, okay, like, are you sure you're full? Because you're not eating again until, whenever the next meal or snack is. But we don't like reward them for cleaning their plates. We don't like say, oh, if you don't eat
So
that,
when they stop and when they're done, they're done.
You're just trusting that they.
Because we have to, it's our job to trust them.
Right.
That
Yeah.
they know what, like, I don't know what her body needs.
Yeah.
She does. And we just try to be, like, really neutral about everything. Like, not saying, oh, like, pizza, that's so bad for you. We just, like, oh, tonight's pizza night. And we know we always, like, have some fruit.
We're
Yeah.
terrible.
or
We are
something.
terrible. Hey, Tiffany!
You're not terrible, but I want both of them. But it's like little girls. Like I want her to grow up just like I love food and I like love to eat, and I feel like my parents did such a good job. They just never made comments about what we were eating, what we were putting into our bodies. And it's just like Jim and I, and like my husband, that's one of our favorite things to do is like go to new restaurants and try new food. And food is fuel, but it's also, there's so much more. Like it's part of like our celebrations, our memories, culture. And so, if it's your birthday and you want to have birthday cake, have birthday cake. It's part of your culture and part of our memories. And so it's just, there's so much emotion tied to food too. And just acknowledging that it's not just something we eat. Like for some of us, it's something that's fun to do. It's a way we celebrate, and just, remembering that, and it's okay.
Yeah.
That's such a good point, and something
that.
we've talked about on previous nutrition is no good or bad foods. So I love that you're preaching that, it's just pizza night. It's not, the pizza, because we hear that all the time in the office. I've mentioned this before. Oh, I had a cookie, I'm so bad.
Yeah.
And when you do that, Tyler, like you're talking about, you're starting to think about look as opposed to performance.
Yeah.
Yes, and one cookie is not going to ruin your performance.
No.
And yes. Oh, and like I do post regularly on Instagram.
Yeah.
gonna say,
I was gonna please plug that because
Where can we find you?
Honestly, it's one of my favorite follows because like the insight that you provide, and direction, especially obviously focused towards the youth athlete, but it's incredible.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So I post there, I would say 5 times a week, and it's fueling.young.athletes on Instagram.
Fueling.young.
And if you can't find
Fueling
that,
Young Athletes,
go to our
Fueling.young.
page. Go to our page, and we'll post it, and we'll share it and tag her in it, so it'll be easy to find.
And do you have a website as well for people to sign up? And
Yes, and my website is cherishnutrition.net.
okay, and so if I'm a parent and I'm interested in your service, that's where I would go.
Yes, yep. So I work individually with athletes. I do team talks. I also run a nutrition challenge. I'm in the middle of one right now. I'm really proud of how all the athletes are doing. Where it's about 6 weeks long. We have a different topic for each week, and the athletes have a goal to meet with that topic every week. So this week we're talking about recovery. So they're all like sending me selfies with their recovery snacks.
Nice.
And just learning how to build that recovery snack. And so it's been really fun.
Yeah, don't say a name, obviously, but is there a favorite story you have for an athlete you've worked with that just came a long way and because of the conversations y'all have had?
Yes. I had a young hockey player that was really wanting to make a travel team, and just his family just wasn't sure how to fuel him. And we successfully fueled him this summer to make it through that tryout process, because youth sports, you're using a lot of energy and you have to eat that energy. Right. And so we really got him going there. I was so proud of them. Like they worked so hard.
Is it mostly about being consistent?
Yes.
It's through the process. So there's got to be, just following a plan.
Yes.
And not going off on your own. Just following that plan and moving forward.
Trust
and
in the plan.
not worrying about being perfect. Like we all mess up. We're all human. And like we have a McFlurry. Okay, have that McFlurry and move on. Like let's not blow the whole day. Let's just move on from that. And it's not a big deal.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Man, this is fun.
Yeah. All right. So cherish.nutrition.net.
Cherish Nutrition.
Just cherishnutrition.net.
Not yet. And then Fueling Young Athletes on Instagram.
Dots.
Fueling.young.athletes on Instagram. And again, we'll tag your page in our Instagram. So this is awesome.
This is great. I wish I would have known you 30 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well,
I'd have gone to Arizona State and been
are
drafted in the second round.
Well, Lindsay, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
And
this
again,
was
we're not
awesome.
done with you.
Yeah.
You're going to be a part of the show. And again, we want to serve. We want to serve not only the community, but the athletes and those that are, that follow us, and we want to follow them at the same time. But we want to provide that value. You provide so much value to the kids out there. So thanks again.
Thank you
coming
so
on the
much.
show.
Thank you. This is great.
Thank you, Lindsay.